Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's stream. As you will know, this replaces my regular video that was due to come out today. Now, this is going to be quite a serious stream. It's going to be a little bit different in tone to things I've done in the past. And interestingly, it's actually the first stream I've ever done on this channel on my own. Usually I have co-hosts or someone I'm interviewing or a panel. So forgive me if I am not perfect at this. We're also going to be examining quite a lot of evidence. We're going to be talking about quite a lot of different hard-hitting facts. Now, this is a slight apology before we start. I cannot do that thing where I show videos. I don't use Streamlabs. I don't use fancy software. There are people who can sort of segue clips and things into this. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. So I have transcribed some of the most important things that we're going to be discussing, but I will be giving you the evidence. I will be giving you time-stamped evidence of what I'm saying. So you don't just have to take my word for it. But unfortunately, I can't show you it. But it is there on the internet. And it all comes from a documentary called Panodrama. Now, this documentary is a documentary produced by Tommy Robertson in response to a documentary that was in fact being made about him. Now, this documentary makes some explosive claims. And when I sat down to watch this documentary, I wasn't paying the hugest amount of attention to the documentary. I was listening, I was eager to hear what he had to say, and anyone that gives the BBC a good kicking is doing something good in my opinion. However, it wasn't long before Caolan Robertson, George Llewellyn-John, and Lauren Southern turned up on this documentary, making some very, very interesting claims. And that's when my ears sort of pricked up, and I stopped playing Minesweeper and began to watch. And I have replayed those bits several times, and I will be talking about them tonight, referencing them. And if you guys want to have the Panodrama documentary open in another window, feel free. If you want to have my Twitter open, because I've put an excerpt from that documentary on my Twitter, again, feel free to do that, because there's some very interesting things that people need to hear. And people also need to hear the tone with which they were said, because tone makes a lot of difference. People's tone, the tone of their voice, the way they say things, whether they start stammering, whether they start stuttering, whether they're confident or whether they're forthright. You can pick up a lot from that. You can analyze people's real meaning, people's hopes, people's fears, and most importantly, whether people are being deceptive. And that's something we'll be analyzing tonight. So if you've seen the Panodrama, that is a good start. And if you haven't, and you're at a PC, obviously if you're doing it on a phone, unlucky, but if you're doing it on a PC, feel free to have another window open. And I will also be referencing other things that you can have open in Windows to have a look at, because everything is going to be referenced. Now, I realized people are still coming in to the chat, so I'm sort of going to ramble on for another couple of minutes to make sure we have capacity before I start. I didn't want to keep you waiting. We started at 7 on the dot. And I don't want to keep you waiting any longer, because I know that a lot of you have waited since Wednesday. A lot of you voted for this on This Week on the Alt-Right when I gave the option of 2 videos. A lot of you have seen the trailer that I posted at lunchtime today, and you've seen the tweets. And you've also seen some people who have been tearing into me, no doubt. People saying, oh, you know, that Mark Collett, he's got something against my lovely Lauren. She wouldn't dare do anything wrong. Well, you know, hold on to your hats, guys, because those people may well be very wrong. In fact, I know they are. And tonight, I will be doing a question and answer. The other reason I didn't address this as I do in my normal video, I'd have loved to have made a 45-minute documentary. But one, I didn't have the time. And secondly, I think this was better as something interactive. Now, I know we've had a few super chats, and I'm sort of slightly monitoring the chat as I'm speaking now, and it's one of those things you feel like you're juggling, because on one hand, or spinning plates, you've seen those guys who spin plates, they're running around and they constantly have to keep them all going. And hosting a YouTube stream is probably a lot harder than hosting sort of a traditional TV show, because on one hand, you're speaking into the camera, on the other hand, you're doing all the technical stuff, you're flipping between windows, you're bringing up documents that you're reading from and things you've prepared, but also you're moderating the chat and trying to keep abreast of the super chat. So because I'm on my own tonight, please accept my apology that if I don't manage to keep up with the chat, you will understand why. And also because I'm reading from a wealth of different documents, you may also understand why I can't have my eyes on the chat. But the reason we've done it like this, as I said, because I wanted this to be interactive. So if you do leave a super chat or you do have a question, I want to address everyone's questions by the end of the stream. And the stream will go on as long as it needs to. Well, within reason. It's not going on for like 6 hours or something, but it will go on, you know, for a couple of hours if needs be, because I didn't want this to be something that I presented as some stunning 45-minute documentary for someone then to throw a spanner, you know, in the works at the very end and post something, you know, in the comments, and then I'm replying to the comments and people are taking things out of context. If anyone wants anything clarified, I wanted the chance to clarify everything tonight. So this is a self-contained piece. It contains everything that I want to say. It contains any clarifications. It answers audiences' questions or fears. It addresses anyone's problems. And it also, as I said, will include citations that you can look up, but sadly I can't play them. And I want to make something else clear as well before I start. Lauren Southern has messaged me. Now, initially I thought it was a message just for me. It doesn't appear to be a message just for me. It appears to be a message that she's banged out as almost sort of like a rebuttal to the, well, I would say allegations, but they're more than allegations. She's admitted to them on film. Tommy Robinson's shown the world. You know, and I know some people here don't like Tommy Robinson, but he has just shown the world that there has been a significant plot against the far right, and you know, Lauren Southern is implicated to a degree in that. But she has made a rebuttal of this, of sorts, and she messaged me. So I want to assure everyone who's here to shill for her or to say that I'm the bad guy for bullying their favorite online girl, that I will be reading that during the stream. I am not going to leave anyone high and dry. This is not some kangaroo court where people can't give a rebuttal. So I want people to know before it starts, to be fair. Now, we've got nearly 800 people watching, so that's a strong number, and we've been waiting for 8 minutes, so I don't want to leave you any longer. And I'm going to start with a little piece that I prepared to sort of whet your appetite. So I shall read this. We are here to discuss the fact that leading members of the alt-right, including Lauren Southern, Caolan Robertson, and George Llewellyn-John, have all been talking to Hope Not Hate, and have indeed met with them. In the case of the latter two individuals, the meetings have been numerous and the contact has been regular. And although they state in the recent Tommy Robinson documentary, Panodrama, that their serious contact with Hope Not Hate only occurred roughly 3 months before Tommy Robinson released that documentary, that is in fact a lie. They have been in contact with Hope Not Hate since around August 2017, where they had their initial meeting with Hope Not Hate and met representatives of Hope Not Hate in person. And these meetings have continued since then, with one rather notable meeting taking place in June of last year, 2018, when Caolan Robertson arrived at a pub in Britain for a meeting with members of Generation Identity. Now, he arrived at that meeting with one Joe Mulhall, a man who is listed as a senior researcher at Hope Not Hate. But all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. Over the course of this live stream, we will lift the lid on this relationship. We will find out who else knew about the extent of their meetings, name those who tried to sound the alarm, and shame those who covered up these meetings for their own gain. But most importantly, we will discuss the implications of these meetings for the movement and the potential fallout from all of this, and how the actions of these people could well affect the lives of many leading individuals in the wider patriotic movement. Now, that's just a little teaser. That's just a taste of things to come, an introduction to what we're going to say. And I've kind of, well, hopefully, I have sort of laid the groundwork for the rest of the piece I have prepared. However, in saying what we're going to say, it's also really important to discuss what we're not going to say. Because whilst it's important to talk about what we want to talk about, we need to address what we're not here to discuss. And what we're not here to discuss is rumor, innuendo, and rubbish. We're not here to spread lies about people. We're not here to start rumors, and we're not here to defame people. This is about facts. It's about identifying bad eggs. But in identifying those bad eggs, because lots of people get called bad eggs, but we need real evidence. And this is about real evidence. This is about actually presenting solid evidence that proves a case, not spreading innuendo about somebody because we don't like them or they said something mean about us or didn't invite us to an event. That's not what this is about. This is about evidence. And the reason we have to use evidence is because calling people names and calling people out and using innuendos and making up nonsense and spreading rumors is bad. And it's not just bad for the people who have the rumors spread about them, it's bad for the wider movement. And I didn't coin this term, so I'm not going to take any sort of credit for it. It was coined by Max Musson of Western Spring, and he coined the term poisoning the well. You see, all of the organizations, all of the online discussions, all of the shows, all of the leaders, all of the talking heads, all of the writers in the alt-right and in the wider movement draw from what we'll call the well. And the well is the fresh water that gives them life, which is in fact the people within the movement. And if we poison that well, if we poison the well that we all drink from, we damage the movement. If we spread rumor, if we spread innuendo, if we spread lies, if we try to defame people, and we build a feeling of mistrust or distrust or dislike within the movement, and it is literally innuendo, nonsense, rubbish, and just there to defame people, we poison the well. And then when we drink from the well, we all perish and the movement gets nowhere. So this is not about poisoning the well. I am against poisoning the well. And if people do things in a different way to me, I might say I don't like what they're doing. I might say it's disingenuous. I might disagree with it, but I'm not going to call them a spy. I'm not going to call them an informant. And I am not going to make up those kind of damaging innuendos about them, because that would be wrong. That would be poisoning the well. So I hope I've made that clear. And I hope I've told you not only what this is going to be about, but what it isn't going to be about. Because what it isn't going to be about is in some ways as important as what it is. So let's start with some facts. And let's introduce the main players in this sorry tale. Now, the main players, we'll split them into three, although they're actually four, but we're going to deal with them in groups of three. The main players are in fact, the main players are in fact Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John, and we'll treat them as a duo because they are. They are a homosexual couple. They are boyfriends. They come together, they work together, they travel together. They are essentially a group. The second person, or the second pillar of this trio we'll be discussing, will be Lauren Southern. Now, I think you all know who Lauren Southern is. People have different opinions of her, but she is crucial to this, and you will see why soon. And finally, we have Hope Not Hate. And if you don't know who they are, I'll be explaining who they are soon, and I will be explaining what they do and also a bit of historical perspective on these people. And finally, although I said we're talking about 3 groups, we'll also at some point in this be discussing Tommy Robertson. And he's brought into this for several reasons, one which is actually very shocking. And if you're thinking this is going to be anti-Tommy, if you think the shocking is going to be and Tommy did this, it's actually not. It's actually shocking because Tommy is at great risk because of this. Tommy Robinson is in fact at a greater risk because of this than he was before he made this documentary. And he, of course, is the man who made the documentary all this came to light. So he's really integral to this. So we'll be discussing him towards the end of the stream. Now, the next thing, well, firstly, let's break this down. We started by saying there's these 3 pillars, and we'll start with the first couple. We have Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John. Now, you will know them as 2 individuals who work as cameramen, editors, film producers, and they started life over at Rebel Media. They work in video production, as I said, and since leaving Rebel, they've worked with both Tommy Robinson and Lauren Southern, as well as with a host of other people. They were heavily involved in the production of Farmlands. They've been similarly involved in the production of Lauren Southern's new documentary, which is to be called Borderless. They've popped up more or less everywhere. They've been on almost every alt-right stream. They've been seen with everyone, you know, from Richard Spencer right through to Nigel Farage. I mean, talk about a cross-section of people. On one hand, you've got Richard Spencer, the other Nigel Farage. I mean, I can't imagine those 2 sitting down for coffee together, but somehow Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John have managed to be involved with both. And that's something we'll come back to a little bit later. And of course, as many of you may be aware, Caolan Robertson even appeared on my show This Week on the Alt-Right a couple of times. Now, that was well back in its infancy. It was when it was hosted by Tara McCarthy on her channel. And I'm going to give you full disclosure. I didn't object to him being on the show. I had no objections to him being on the show. And it wasn't me who booked him, though. Tara booked him, but I had no objections. So some people might say, oh, well, you know, are you throwing Tara under the bus? I'm not. She booked him, but I had no objections. So there's no bad feeling there, no nothing. And full disclosure, he did appear on my show. Now, Caolan Robertson and his boyfriend, George Llewellyn-John, we know have been in regular contact with Hope Not Hate. And we know this. It is in the Panorama documentary. And we know the extent of their relationship with Hope Not Hate. They've not just been in contact with them. They've not just met them. But during that documentary, they appear to admit, well, they do admit, that something happened in Milan. Now, Hope Not Hate flew to Milan to see these guys, so it sounds like quite a strong relationship to me. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. See, the fact is, Hope Not Hate flew to Milan to meet them, but my opinion is that shows it's quite a strong relationship. And during that documentary, Caolan Robertson and his boyfriend appear to admit that the senior researcher at Hope Not Hate, one Joe Mulhall, either shared a hotel room with them, shared a house with them, or shared an apartment with them. Now, that sounds to me as if they were very close, and we have to ask, how close did they actually get? And during the Panorama documentary, there's plenty of recorded footage of Caolan discussing the meetings they had with Hope Not Hate. And the other thing that really got me with the way Caolan kept talking on that documentary is he kept calling the leading members of Hope Not Hate by their first names. He kept referring to them as Joe and Nick. Joe and Nick, Nick and Joe, Nick and Joe, or just with Nick and Joe. That really got to me because, you see, that's Nick Lowles, the head of Hope Not Hate, the director of Hope Not Hate, whichever, and Joe Mulhall, their senior researcher. But to him, it's Nick and Joe. Now, I've worked with lots of people on the alt-right. Lots of people. I've worked with people like, say, Jared Taylor. I've met Jared Taylor as well back in, I think it was 2006 at Amren. He's a great guy. But I don't call him Jared. I call him Jared Taylor. And if I was talking about tonight, I'm speaking later this month in Sweden with Jared Taylor. I won't be like, oh, I'm speaking later this month with Jared, because I'm just not that familiar with him. But if you watch carefully, and I implore you, after after what I've said tonight, go back and look at what I've said. And for those naysayers who say that I'm sort of making this up, stirring things, watch the way they talk about them. It's Joe and Nick, Joe and Nick, Joe and Nick. First name terms, very, very pally, and very, very telling. Very, very telling indeed. Now, we'll have a little look at Caolan's character next. And these are observations. Now, Caolan allegedly has a bit of a drink problem. Now, when he appeared on my show, he drank a glass of wine during the show. He always had a glass of wine in his hand. And after the show, when the show had finished, I was quite shocked because sometimes we talk after the show on these little things. And he was there taking his makeup off. He'd been wearing makeup during the show. And I asked somebody why, and they alleged that he wears the makeup because he has a bit of a drink problem, and you can see it in his face when he hasn't got the makeup on. And those were things that were pointed out by a number of people who know him. So that raises a few red flags, because I'm always very, very concerned about people who are alleged to be drinkers, alleged to be into any sort of substance or need money for things and have a certain lifestyle, because I believe those people are far easier to buy and influence than people who live a much more straight edge lifestyle. Like, if your favorite thing is sitting at home on the couch, playing PUBG on your mobile phone, you're living a pretty simple life. But if your favorite thing is going out to some posh bars in London and downing champagne and things like that, you need quite a bit of money to keep that lifestyle going. So I'm always very wary of anyone who has anything like that, whether gambler, drinker, obviously addict to anything. Now he also has a little bit of a reputation of being a little bit, bitchy, effeminate, and obviously people have pointed out he's a homosexual. Now, the fact that he's a homosexual isn't something that I'm going to flag up as makes him an inherently bad person or anything, but he does have a slightly effeminate nature, and some of these men are more prone to being a little bit gossipy, shall we say. So that's Caolan's character, and a few of the things that raised red flags when I worked with him a couple of times, and what people were saying to me around that time. And what people alleged to me about him, about his lifestyle, about his drinking. So now we'll move on to Lauren Southern. Now, I know I probably don't have to introduce her, but I'm going to. The next big name is obviously Lauren, and she is a big name. Not just big, she's probably the largest name on the alt-right. She's amassed this huge social media following. She's worked with so many people. She's spoken in the European Parliament. She's got all these friends, and she's more or less trusted by everyone, and that's an important point. Something we're gonna come back to later. She's trusted by everyone. Everyone likes her, everyone loves her, and she's big. She's big enough to have produced a very successful documentary called Farmlands, which was very good, and it did a lot of good work. I'm not slamming her as an awful person for what she has done in many respects, but we'll get on to what she's done, which is very bad and duplicitous later. Or what I feel is duplicitous, should I correct myself? I feel it is duplicitous. And now she's working on Borderless. Now, the thing with Lauren Southern, and I said we'll come back to who she knows and how trusted she is and who she has access to later, because that's very important. But we also know Lauren Southern has met with Hope Not Hate. We know she's met them. Now, I was talking earlier about Panadrama, and if you doubt what I'm saying, if she's your, ideal woman, and you've been following her for years and you have some sort of bizarre connection with her online, watch the Panadrama documentary from 31 minutes and 55 seconds. The clip's also on my Twitter, and she admits she has met with representatives from Hope Not Hate. So we know she has met representatives of Hope Not Hate. We also know that she knew Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John were in regular touch with Hope Not Hate whilst they were working on her Borderlands documentary with her. But she essentially put that one to one side. She carried on working with them despite what they were up to. And something else that I noticed about Lauren, and we'll analyse her speech a little bit later, but she refers to Joe Mulhall, the senior researcher from Hope Not Hate, in the same way as Caolan, Robertson, and George Llewellyn-John did. She talks of Joe Mulhall as Joe. And when she talks to Tommy Robinson on Panodrama about her meeting with Hope Not Hate, she doesn't say that she met Joe Mulhall. She said, oh, I met Joe. I met Joe. And again, that for me was a huge red flag, because it sounded very pally. It sounded like she's obviously discussed him a lot with several people to be just using his first name terms. But it also just rolled off her tongue in a way that made me feel a bit uncomfortable. But if you want, as I said, I'm just going through the character profiles. This is 30 seconds. You can go and watch it now and come back to the stream if you don't believe me. So all those who have been doubting me or thinking this is a hit piece, go and watch that 30 seconds and pop back. I'll still be talking. I'll still be here. You can still ask your questions afterwards. So Lauren, let's go through her, character traits. She's very high profile. She's young. She has a huge following, and she's trusted, but not just trusted by her fans, because lots of people have a little following and they're trusted by the fans. Because there's almost sort of two sort of measures of trust, isn't there? There's the trust that people who follow you have, but there's also the trust that your contemporaries, the people you work with, have in you. And that's something really important. Those are really, really, things that you can gauge somebody's social standing by. And she's trusted by both. There's a vast number of fans who fund, quite a good lifestyle for her. And she's trusted by figureheads. People like Stefan Molyneux. She has access to people like Stefan, Milo, all these people. Nigel Farage, in fact. Now, she has access to all those people. And, she has real reach because of that. And because of her reach, that gave both Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John access not only to her contacts, but this is the important bit, and bear this in mind, it gave them cover. It gave them cover. Because when they turned up places and people said, who are these guys? Where are they from? How do we know them? Come on, guys, security check on those two. Oh, no, we're with Lauren Southern. We're with Lauren. Oh, we're the guys who did Farmland. We're with Lauren. You can trust us. We're with her. Lauren's, yeah, they're with me. Bring them through. Bring them through. It's kind of like, when you see, when you see those sort of like after parties after a big concert, a mega band like Guns N' Roses will play a concert, and one of their mates will turn up who lives in that city that they knew for like 10, 20 years, and the guy will be like, I'm with Axel, yeah, let me into the after party, mate. And Axel, yeah, let him in. And everyone just, oh yeah, he knows him, he's all right, let him in. And it's that kind of mentality. It gives them access, it gives them sort of a reach, it allows them to talk, mingle with, meet, and be around people that they were listening to, talking to, and who knows what else. I don't want to, allege anything here, but who knows what else. And we might find out what else later on. We may well find out. So we've gone through two of the three main players who are individuals. But now let's introduce the other main player in this whole sorry tale. It's the organization known as Hope Not Hate. Now, who are Hope Not Hate and what do they do? Well, Hope Not Hate are, and I think this would be a fair characterization. In fact, you know what? I'm going to be very fair to them in the outset. I'm going to give them their own characterization of themselves. They're an anti-racist, anti-nationalist group who, this is what it says on their website. Hope Not Hate uses research, education, and public engagement to challenge mistrust and racism, and helps to build communities that are inclusive, celebrate shared identities, and are resilient to hate. Core areas: robust research into hate groups, engagement with those who are attracted to fear and hate. Through our political arm, challenge political parties which promote racism and intolerance, as well as engaging with other political parties to help them actively stand up to hate. Public education about hate groups and constructive ways to challenge those groups. Working with groups and communities that seek to proactively challenge hate, and increasing awareness of and encouraging engagement in civic matters and the democratic process. So there you have it. That's from their words. That's what they say they do. So you can pretty well tell from that, they're opposed to our politics. They're opposed to what we do, what we think, what we get up to. And they aim to try and, I think, polite say, to stop us. Now, part of what they do is gathering information on those that they oppose, the far right, nationalists, and people they term as racists. And they do a number of things. They publish reports on us. There's a report they do every year called the State of Hate, where they analyze just how we're doing, just how our organizations are faring, who are the main people, the main players, whether parties are rising, whether they're falling. They also publish other things on our groups. They publish a blog called the Insiders blog, where they appear to, at times, take screen caps from people's Facebooks and publish information they have. So they gather this information and then they publish it in reports. And, you can see that on their Insiders blog. You can see it in their State of Hate report. They also publish a magazine. So they're gathering and producing information on our group, which is read by a range of people. I'm sure mainly actually people on the far left and also people on the quote unquote far right. People like ourselves read it because it often features us. So that's what they get up to. But remember that information gathering. Now, Hope Not Hate have also worked with the police on several occasions and have admitted to passing information to the police on individuals and organizations, which has at times led to people going to jail, people, going to court. And in fact, that actually happened to me. And we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about me a little bit later on. They also work with, inform and pass information to the press and the media. And often the press and the media work with them to make documentaries. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago now, they sued Nigel Farage because he called them, he made an allegation against, I'm not going to repeat the allegation, and they set about taking him to court, and Nigel Farage had to withdraw that allegation. Now, we're going to talk about me for a second here. They were involved in a documentary called The Secret Agent that resulted in my arrest and also the arrest of the then leader of the British National Party, Nick Griffin. And myself and Nick Griffin were arrested in 2004, and we went on trial, and those trials lasted up until the end of 2006. And that was quite a big chunk of our lives spent in and out of court and on police bail, etc. So I myself know the extent of their reach, who they work with, etc. And that's pretty much Hope Not Hate. But I'm sure most of you know about them already. But if you don't, there's the lowdown. Now, Breitbart ran a very interesting article on Hope Not Hate, and their headline read this: a former Hope Not Hate communications advisor has admitted the group trying to take Nigel Farage to court uses, and they use this quote, dirty, underhand, low-down, unscrupulous tactics in their effort to crush political opponents. Now, that Breitbart article is titled, Hope Not Hate's own spin doctor admitted their tactics are dirty, underhand, low-down, and unscrupulous. Writing for the Labour Uncut website in 2011, paid Hope Not Hate activist turned Telegraph columnist, and he said communist there, columnist it is, Dan Hodges admitted how the group operates. So you can look that up on Breitbart. And in fact, I said I was going to cite these things. I'm posting it in the chat now. This is my first interaction with the chat. There it goes. It is in the chat. So you can see that. So that's the lowdown on Hope Not Hate. Now, I'm going to add to this, I know what people's first defense for Caolan Robertson, George Llewellyn-John, and Lauren Southern will be. People are going to say, who are watching this, that don't like me or are desperate to defend them for one of several reasons. So what? They talk to that group. They talk to someone. They talk to them. What's the big deal? Well, I'm going to put this to you. This is what I'm going to put to you. I believe that anyone talking to or working with or passing information to Hope Not Hate should be completely blackballed from our movement. completely extricated from our movement and shunned. They should never be dealt with, they should never be tolerated, and they should never, ever be allowed to just waltz around in our circles like they have been. That's a bold statement, but I hope you all agree with it. If you don't, you don't. But that is my opinion. Because I made a point of saying, Hope Not Hate are information gatherers. And they gather information, and groups that gather information on us can gather lots of things that can be used against us. And those talking to information gatherers, whether that be anyone gathering information, from the police to these so-called anti-racist groups, are putting people in our movement in jeopardy. Those talking to these information gatherers are essentially aiding those who want to hold us back, aiding those who want to destroy us, aiding those who want to jail us, aiding those who want to deplatform us, aiding those who are making smear pieces on us, and they're potentially holding back our entire movement. And they're compromised. But I know what some people are going to say. Some people are going to say, maybe these lads were playing at their own game. Maybe these lads are the real professionals. Maybe they were all just meeting them and didn't say anything. And I'm going to say, categorically, here and now, no. No, they weren't. You see, these people who meet with information gatherers and think they're clever, these people who meet with those who are trying to do us down and think they're outwitting them and are meeting them for years, they are people who are aiding them. They're aiding these information gatherers. Because the only reason a group of information gatherers would keep meeting with individuals is if those individuals were continuing to furnish those information gatherers with new, fresh, and useful information. That is a fact. If information gatherers were meeting with someone who was just rambling nonsense about, the things that, the knitting class they'd been to and the number of jumpers they'd been knitting, they wouldn't keep meeting them. They'd get very bored. But these meetings have been going on since August 2017. That's a long time. Imagine how much information, and I'm just asking you this is just my question to you. How much information do you think has been passed in that time? Because the only reason for continued contact is continued information. And that is something that Caolan Robertson admits to in Tommy's Panodrama documentary. And I believe, and this is my opinion, this isn't a fact, this is my opinion, and I'm asking you to consider that. I believe agencies target people just like Caolan. And they target him because he's a liability. And they've been speaking to him for over a year. In fact, he admits in the show it's nearer 2. And I have to ask the question, what's he given them in that time? And if he is, as it's been alleged, a drunk, if he is, as it's been alleged, a bit of a party boy who likes to live large and drink, and he admits he likes it, and we're going to come back to, in fact, I'll tell you in a second because it adds this all up. He admits this in the show. He actually says at one point, Hope Not Hate or somebody from Hope Not Hate is either staying in the same house, the same villa, the same hotel room as him, and he's so drunk he's passed out on the bed. So he's admitted that he's actually in a state when he's around these people. So I'm asking you this question because I know what my opinion is. I believe, and this is my opinion, this is not a fact, that these people targeted him because he had a drinking problem, because he liked to live large, and they were plying him with alcohol, they were taking him out for a good time, and the information was flowing, and he was gaining something from that. He was gaining something from their interactions, and they were too. So that, to me, is very damning. And, if somebody was informing to the police, if somebody was going to the police and ratting people out, you could imagine this being a similar scenario. Somebody who's an alcoholic, he needs a drink. This imaginary alcoholic, that I'm certainly not saying is Caolan Robertson, needs a drink, and he goes to the police to rat out his friend, and the police buy him, a few shandies, a few glasses of prosecco, and he spills his guts at the end of the night. You can imagine these things happening, and I don't think for me, that's a conclusion I may draw, but I'll leave it up to you what conclusion you draw, because I'm giving you the facts and I'm letting you guys be the jury. And you can see where this is leading, but it's important before we get where it's going to have what I call a timeline of events. And I'm going to give this from my point of view and lay everything bare that I know about this. So here we go. Caolan Robertson works for Rebel. Caolan Robertson leaves Rebel. Ezra Levant accuses him quite publicly of blackmail. Caolan Robertson then says that the Rebel were basically trying to scam people and he wanted to expose them and he wants to go sort of alt-right. He appears on my show with Tara McCarthy and a few other people. Now, this is where things get interesting, and this is where this involves me a little bit, because Caolan calls me up after one of these shows and we speak on the phone and we're getting on quite well, and he asks if I want to come to London. He says, Lauren Southern's coming over at some point, so are some other people. Why don't we have a get together? Why doesn't he hire a big sort of flat in London and we'll all get together for a weekend, have a bit of a conference, see if we can pool our resources. So I'm like, that's a very generous offer. He says he wants to come to the Traditional Britain group, and he says, why don't you come down? I book a place, and he was later ejected from the Traditional Britain group and wasn't allowed to go. I went, met some people. He wasn't there. I've never met him in person, not once. Now, this is the interesting thing. During that initial conversation with me, he drops in quite casually that Hope Not Hate have contacted him, and that they've written to him and they've written to his boyfriend, George Llewellyn John. At which point my reply was quite simply, do not reply, do not speak to them, do not think you can outwit them, and certainly don't meet with them or anything else. If you do that, you will not be welcome on my show. I don't want to work with you, and I will warn everyone of this. Now, another bit of disclosure, I do regularly get people, especially young people, telling me that they've been challenged, maybe once, twice a month, challenged by either teachers, somebody from Prevent has visited them. They've had someone challenge them, maybe even, sort of the local police come around and say, oh, we've noticed you've been posting this on social media and we'd like to have a chat with you. And my advice is always the same to these people, because I know people get contacted. So if people are contacted, that is not condemnation in itself, but my advice is always the same. Unless you are under arrest, say nothing and turn those people away. And if you are under arrest, still say nothing and ask for a solicitor straight away. And that was my point. Caolan Robertson shortly decided he didn't want to go on the show anymore. He admitted to me he had a couple of personal problems, which I'm not going to go into, because that would really add nothing, very little to this, other than the things that are already publicly available about him. And I don't want to be somebody who's giving out gossip. This is the gossip stream. So I break contact. And when I broke contact with him, I think he messaged me maybe once or twice after that, at intervals, just saying hi. Said hi cordially back, but I broke contact with him, certainly wasn't speaking to him regularly, and I told everyone, I warned everyone that he'd been contacted by them. People took that on board. Now, I don't hear from him for some time, and the next time he pops up, he is with Tommy Robinson, and he's now filming with Tommy Robinson and doing a number of different things with Tommy, and eventually he's part of the Day for Freedom debacle. And shortly after that, with the drag queen on stage and all the rest, he decides he's not working with Tommy anymore, and he's now working with Lauren Southern, and he goes and he starts working on farmlands, and he was allegedly involved in some form of backstabbing of Faith Goldie, who was unceremoniously dumped, because apparently it was her who was meant to be doing work in South Africa, but that was grasped and she didn't do that. So and then all that drama's going on, and a close friend of mine calls me. Now, this guy I do trust. I have worked on numerous events with him. He is someone that I actually arranged a couple of camping events with, and I have camped with him since. I talk to him semi-regularly, and he's a good guy. He's somebody that I do like and do trust. And he rang me up one day with a little bit of a snippet, shall we call it, of information. And this snippet of information, well, actually, it's more than a snippet. It's more than a snippet or a morsel. In fact, I would say it's more than a mouthful. It's more of a meal of information, and something that's quite hard to swallow, a rather gristly meal that you can't swallow. And this gristly meal is that Caolan Robertson has turned up at a pub for a meeting with members of Generation Identity, and Joe Mulhall, the senior researcher from Hope Not Hate, was in tow. And this is what was alleged to me. At this point, I go completely mad and say nothing good can come from this. You know, these people will know who all these lads from GI are now. They're going to know who these people are. People are going to be exposed. And I'm not happy about this. So I go on the mini warpath. And those who know me know what my little warpaths are like. And I start warning everyone. Now, I'm not going to give an exhaustive list of everyone I warned. And by this time, I had stopped working with Tara. Tara had stopped doing the This Week on the alt-right, but I warned Tara. I warned and had long conversations with Millennial Woes. I warned and had long conversations with several other people. I warned everyone in my circles, including the guy who contacted me. I told him to warn everyone. And I told everybody not to deal with them. I even had a conference call, a little bit of a conference chat with Andy Worski, who I get on with very well, and said to him, you've got contact with some of these people. Don't. This is a bit of a big scoop, and if you want to run with it, I'd understand it. I warned all of these people about this association and all about it. And I even asked Tara McCarthy, and I've still got the messages on Skype to back this up, to tell Lauren Southern. And I also messaged Tommy Robinson. I messaged him when he came out of jail. I messaged him to his Facebook, warning him, because there was all this hullabaloo of who had sold him out. Who were the people selling out Tommy? Who were the people telling the police he'd be there? And I warned him, because I'm not on the same page as Tommy Robinson with anything. I know he's not a great big fan of mine, and he probably says lots of things about me. He probably calls me a bit beyond the pale because of some of the things that I say and some of my stances. But I tried to warn him, because although we're not on the page with everything, I don't want the lad in jail. And I certainly don't want him being subject to some embarrassing documentary, which ends up with him sharing the same fate as I did, 3 or 4 of his years of life on police bail and in and out of courts. Because whether you think I'm a great person or not, I do have a code of honor. And Tommy Robinson, you might say, he's this, he's that, but he is nominally in the same camp as us. He's considered by all of our enemies as in the same camp as us. So I warned him. I tried to warn him, and I tried to warn Lauren Southern. Now, my warnings obviously didn't get anywhere. They got places with other people, because Millennial Woes didn't have him on Millennial. Other people didn't engage with him after this. And that was good. So this is, it showed that people did listen to me. So I said, we will name the people who listened to me and we'll shame the ones who didn't. Now, the worrying thing about this is I passed my message to Lauren and it was basically like dead air, like nothing. As if had it got there, had she taken any interest in what I was saying? We don't know. We don't know. But in fact, we do know, because she knew all about this. She knew about Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn John. She knew that they were meeting with, having regular contact with, and dealing with these people at Hope Not Hate. And she was reassuring people and covering for them. So let's go on to the further evidence. Here's the further evidence. Now, obviously, we discussed this earlier, so if you're late to the show, I don't have the technical competence to play bits of the video, but you can go and watch Panodrama afterwards to make sure that I am not telling any porky pies, that I'm being truthful. And here are some choice picks from Panodrama. On working with Hope Not Hate and giving information on the rebel to Hope Not Hate, Caolan Robertson says, and I quote, "We were really conniving with them." Now that would have been around August 2017. So that shows the length of contact Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn John had with the group known as Hope Not Hate. In a later statement, he then claims that he hasn't spoken to Hope Not Hate since leaving the rebel. That he admits that he spoke to Hope Not Hate and had a meeting with them when he left the rebel, but he hasn't spoken to them to around 3 months before Tommy aired the Panodrama documentary. So he says that he spoke to them around August 2017, but until November 2018 or around November 2018, he didn't speak to them again until then. That's a lie. That's a lie, because we know he met them at the pub with the GI members. Then he says this, which is very interesting. And I've not managed to transcribe everything he says because he says far too much. So I've just picked a few things. He openly admits to this, and I quote, he says he was talking SH, you know what comes next, about rebel and right-wing media personalities, and that he was calling them C***TSs. And then he says, but it was nothing serious. I was just talking, you know, rubbish about them and calling them obscenities. I was sat with, he basically says he was sat with members of Hope Not Hate, talking rubbish about people and slagging them down, you know, bad-mouthing everyone. And he said, but nothing serious, you know, and he just brushes this off. He brushes this off. He then goes on to say that he's had more meetings with them, plenty more meetings with them. And then he makes some very serious allegations about Hope Not Hate and representatives from Hope Not Hate. He says that they made undue sexual advances to him and did things that they shouldn't have done to him, and that they were bribing him or blackmailing him. You know, bribery and blackmail are two very different things, but he sort of claims a little bit of both. Now, I want to go on record here and say that I think Caolan Robertson's allegations are absolute nonsense. I don't think he was bribed or blackmailed. Well, he might have been paid. I don't know. He might have been given money. He might have accepted drink, whatever. I don't know. He may have done. But I don't think he was blackmailed. I don't think he was blackmailed at all. And I also do not think anyone from Hope Not Hate did any sexual misconduct towards him. And you might be thinking, are you sticking up for Hope Not Hate? No, I'm not. I am not. And I am going to expose why they didn't later. And this is going to be the real shock moment that we're coming up to. This is going to be the really shock moment coming up to. But the other question is, how, for Caolan to allege that these guys, that Joe Mulhall, in fact, he alleged that Joe Mulhall entered his room at night when he was drunk and started doing things to him. That doesn't really ring true to me. And I'll tell you why. Because to get in such close proximity to someone would mean you're either sharing a house or an apartment with them that doesn't have locks on the doors, or they are already sleeping in, say, a twin hotel room with you. But to get in that position with you, that person is very, very close with you. Because I've gone out, I've gone on holidays with people, and I've shared a twin room with a mate, but we were very close. You know, we were very good friends, you know, and I've had friends stay at my house because they're friends. But that shows the level of closeness these people had to Caolan Robertson, that they were sharing a room or sharing a house or an apartment, or in such close proximity that he claims they could just enter his room at night when he was drunk, admitting that he got drunk with them. He seems to be admitting that he got drunk with them, and they just enter his room because they've got access to it. Really gets the old noggin jogging, doesn't it? Really makes you think what he's actually admitting to and who the real victim is. But we'll find out who the real victim is. Don't worry. We have a conclusion. Don't worry, and we're getting to it. Now we're going to expose Lauren. Now, Lauren's bits were much shorter than Caolan Robertson's bits. So Lauren Southern. Now, Tommy, in his documentary, he includes a voice recording of Lauren Southern. It starts at 31 minutes and 55 seconds. You can hear it on my Twitter. I said all this earlier. And it goes something like this. Tommy says, I have just gone off the phone to Caolan for an hour. And then Tommy asks, how much have they told you about Hope Not Hate? Now, I want you to listen very carefully when you do to Lauren Southern's response. She says in a very terse, short, and defensive manner, not much, why? All of a sudden, she's very defensive, very on her guard, because I believe, it is my opinion, that she is lying. But you can draw your own conclusions. Tommy then backs her into a bit of a corner and says, you aware that they've been meeting with them regularly? And all of a sudden, Lauren's tone changes. She's not terse, short, and defensive anymore. Because she's a confident girl. She does you know, a lot of speaking. She's a confident girl. But she starts to stutter. I've met Joe too before. Yeah, like I know that Caolan and George have met with them before. What? Well, a second ago, it was not much why. Now, all of a sudden the floodgates are open. She's met Joe before, and she's not calling him Joe Mulhall. She's calling him Joe. She's met Joe. Joe, just Joe. She's just met Joe, just Joe. And she knows, yeah, like I know that Caolan and George have met with them before. What? And Tommy cuts in, because he sounds shocked here. Continually met with them when you were doing your Borderless documentary. Hope Not Hate flew out to Italy to meet them, says Tommy. And Lauren responds, I don't know what they were talking about. She then continues with rubbish about Caolan alleging that Hope Not Hate blackmailed them, which I think is rubbish for being through that. She also talks about Caolan's claims about being sexually assaulted, which I also don't believe. And we're coming on to that, so don't worry, we're going to get to that in a minute. I don't want to defame anyone. I don't want to defame anyone. I want to get to the bottom of things. And I think I've put forward a good case. But in all fairness, I'm going to let Lauren defend herself, because she wrote to me. She wrote to me and tried to explain herself. So I'm going to read her response, and then I'm going to read my response to her. Lauren said to me, "Hey, I'm sure you mean well in looking into all of this. But if you're actually curious to hear my side, here I go. Last year, I got an invite to meet Hope Not Hate. I thought it would be interesting to confront them. I told a bunch of my friends it was happening, including journos, so if it ever came out, they would know it wasn't some secret nonsense. You can feel free to ask someone like Britt Pettibone, who I called that day. I got into a yelling match with the head of the group, saying I disagreed with his group's actions. We had a proper debate, finished our beers, that was my interjection there, and the meeting was over. Never met with them again. Halfway through my documentary filming, Caolan approached me and came clean, saying he was being blackmailed by Hope Not Hate and had to meet with them, but said he wasn't giving them any info and was just afraid of them. He also said he was actively seeking a way out of the situation. I was uncomfortable with the whole thing, obviously, but have a duty to finish a film to those who donated to create it. Now, you think it's about making money, but the doco has actually put me in the red. So it's not like I can give refunds. Every dime donated has been spent on flights, security, equipment, etc. So it's not as easy for me as just saying, well, this is a bit chaotic. I better cancel the film. I've got a responsibility to finish the film. I also, honestly, didn't want to hear much or be involved in any sort. I also honestly didn't want to hear much or be involved in any sort of dramas. I've been honest with anyone who's asked me personally about what happened. I have zero involvement with what went on. If you have any more questions, let me know. Well, folks, I did have a response, and she hasn't responded to it to date, but I feel in the interests of decency, I should read it. And this was my response. Firstly, let's not start with the whole I know you mean well, as if we both aren't acquainted with who Hope Not Hate are and what they do. But for sake of clarity, so we are sure we are on the right page, it is my opinion that Hope Not Hate are an information gathering group who work with the British state to reveal the identities of, harass and even jail nationalists, as well as generally deplatforming us, removing our funding and ability to gain payments, and of course, get us kicked off social media platforms. The fact you met with these people, knowing that they were the ones allegedly behind numerous attacks on your friends, allegedly being behind numerous attacks on people you've worked with, allegedly being behind legal cases against men like myself, Nigel Farage and Tommy Robertson, and the huge campaigns to allegedly ruin and jail a large number of patriots, nationalists, alternative thinkers, makes me very suspicious. But let's give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's say you are the naive and green little girl who went along for a debate with people you didn't really know you didn't really know were allegedly so malicious and driven to destroy the aforementioned people who are nominally on your side. What I find very odd, even more odd than the above, is that you would let two people work with you and meet a massive swathe of other key nationalist thinkers, speakers, and figureheads when you knew that those two people were passing information to Hope Not Hate. Because let's get it straight, you and I both know that Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John weren't being bribed or blackmailed. They have been willingly playing both sides, most likely, in my opinion, for financial gain. And because of this, Tommy Robinson has now been set up. And he could, I said, he's probably going to lose his house. He could lose his house. We're going to come back to that. Because when I found out Caolan the rat was meeting with Hope Not Hate, I warned everyone. I even messaged Tommy. Hell, I even passed a message to you. I sent Tara McCarthy an urgent message to pass to you. But when you found out Caolan and George were meeting with Hope Not Hate, you kept it quiet because you wanted to finish your film. Now tell me what integrity is. Because I spent 3 to 4 years of my life fighting a court case brought about by these people and could have gone to jail for up to 7 years. And now other people may pay a huge price, and you kept quiet and covered for these rats. So you might have met your responsibility to your donors, but you let down the whole movement in the process. And you might have avoided the drama, but you didn't really. You just shirked your duty to people who trusted and admired you. And by now, some of you, that's the end of it, by the way. And by now, some of you may be thinking that I'm being a bit mean and, people are ready to probably tear me down. And they're probably thinking that I was a little harsh to her. But let me explain. Let me take you back on a little journey. Let me take you back to the past. Back in 2004, I was 24. I was a young man. Actually, I was 23, going on 24. I was a young man. And I was involved in the European election campaign for the British National Party. And I was working hard. And I was giving speeches all around West Yorkshire, campaigning. And at that time, Hope Not Hate worked with the BBC, and West Yorkshire Police and Bradford Trade Union to produce a documentary called The Secret Agent. Now, the secret agent, the man who was the secret agent, was a guy called Jason Gwynn. He was an undercover reporter for the BBC. Now, Jason Gwynn was quite an awkward guy, and he actually wormed his way into a position where he actually was in my house at one time. He wormed his way into many people's homes, and he wormed his way into positions where he was around a multitude of people, including Nick Griffin, the leader, other officers of the party, and myself. And how did he do that? How did the secret agent, Jason Gwynn, the undercover reporter, manage to get close to people? I mean, how did he get to my house? Well, I'll tell you. There was a man who was one of the trusted organisers in Bradford BMP. And that man was named Andy Sykes. And everyone trusted him and knew him. He'd been working and had ostensibly done good work for the BMP. He had leafleted, he'd been out, done lots of activism, held packed meetings with standing room only. And people trusted him and people liked him. Okay? And Jason, and he'd been turned, he was working with Hope Not Hate, and he was Jason Gwynn's cover. So when Jason turned up at my house to pick up some leaflets, I was like, I don't really get this guy, he's a bit of a weirdo. But Andy was like, oh mate, he's all right, I know, I've been around to his house, he's a great guy. Well, if you say so, Andy, because we trust you. When Jason turned up at meetings and asked awkward questions and seemed like to stick out like a sore thumb, people were like, who's this fella? But Andy was like, he's sound, he's with me. He's one of the hardest working actors we've got. He's just a bit shy. He's just out of university. He works at a local pub down mine. He's all right. So people gave him a pass. And I'm seeing this parallel. I'm seeing history repeat itself. Because I'm not saying Lauren Southern was working for Hope Not Hate, because I don't believe she was. I don't believe she's a spy. I don't believe she's working for Hope Not Hate. I don't believe she's working with them. But her naivety and her stupidity and her covering for Caolan Robertson and George, Llewellyn John was the Andy Sykes effect. Because when she walked into the room and they walked with her, and people were like, who are these two? Why they're asking a lot of questions. She was one covering for them. It was her good name, her fame, and the trust everyone had placed in her that gave those guys a pass. And that, my friends, is the parallel that I draw. And back in 2004, the secret agent was the biggest and most destructive expose nationalism had ever seen. It really rocked us at the time. We beat it in court, what actually helped us in the long run. So in the end, we turned it to our advantage. But at the time, it was this big thing. But this is bigger. This is bigger. And it runs along the same lines because the people doing the talking were covered for back then, and they were covered for now. Back then, they were covered for by Andy Sykes, and this time they were covered for by Lauren Southern. And that's the problem. That's my big problem. That's what gave these the cover. And, you know, me and Nick Griffin, we beat the odds. But are other people going to beat the odds? And let's talk about this, because, you know, I've said earlier that Lauren Southern was covering for people and that she's been talking this nonsense. And I said there's going to be a big punch at the end of this. She was talking this nonsense about blackmail. She was talking nonsense about, you know, these sexual assault allegations, which are just rubbish. And this is what we're going to look at next. We're going to analyze those, because I think they're a pack of lies. I think, and Tommy's run with them. Tommy's run with them, and I don't believe them to be true. And I'll tell you why I don't believe them to be true. Firstly, when Caolan spoke to me and said that Hope Not Hate had contacted him, I said to him, well, what are they said to you? So and he tried to pass it off when I got a bit sort of like frontish with him. He said, "Oh, I think they just fancy my boyfriend. You know, my boyfriend wrote back to them. It was only meaningless nonsense, bit of flirting, but we won't do it again." Oh, flirt, because now you're saying that it's more than flirting, but back then you were saying it doesn't really add up, does it? Bit bizarre, bit of a weird thing to say. And he seems to have told, or he's allegedly told, a number of different stories to a number of different people. And he was staying in the same house or the same hotel room, the same apartment. So they're very close, which says, you know, again, strange. But you know what's really strange? And this is the real kicker. This is the real odd thing. Because Caolan was claiming to all these people that he's been sexually assaulted, he's been blackmailed, and they've got him, and he's trapped, and Lauren Southern was just avoiding the drama. You know, all the drama that she just wants to finish the documentary. Come on, guys, she's finishing a documentary while these guys are the victims. They're being blackmailed. And no, it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. And I'm going to prove it's nonsense. And do you know how I'm going to prove it's nonsense? Because before, you know, because if you're sort of holding on to this naive belief that Caolan Robertson is just a lost little boy who's in a bad spot, you need to think again. You see, Tommy Robinson, he's a very hot-headed guy. He jumps in with both feet, and that, I'm saying he's brave in some ways. But sometimes there's a fine line between bravery and being a little bit foolish. And Tommy Robinson ran with their allegations of sexual assault, and he's kept on running with these allegations of sexual assault. And there seems to be this nonsense that Caolan's the victim. But is he? Because let's have a look at something. And I'm going to read something very, very interesting to you all, which is shall we say it's the cherry on, because I put a lot of icing on this cake. This is a good cake and there's a lot of icing, but this is the cherry on the top of the icing. So let's get that cherry on top of the icing. And I'm going to read from Nick Lowles' Twitter. Hope Not Hate totally refutes these bizarre and idiotic allegations. This is just a desperate attempt by Stephen Lennon to derail a program that will unmask his criminality, threatening and bullying behavior, and racism. Tweet number 2. Not only are his allegations without merit, Hope Not Hate has documentary evidence to refute them. Text messages, emails, and phone call recordings from his own associates that we have in our possession contradict the ludicrous claims he has made. Next tweet. Caolan Robertson has since retracted the sexual assault allegation included during the Panodrama film, and yesterday he told Stephen Lennon that his allegation was not true, and yet the allegation was still aired. We will now be next tweet, sorry. We will now be consulting our lawyers about taking legal action. Stephen Lennon is desperate for people to focus on anything other than his extremism and criminality. Next tweet. Stephen Lennon should be under no illusion about the hope not hate determination to hold him account for his lies. We would be wise to remember that in 2016, we successfully sued Nigel Farage for calling us violent and anti-democratic. Lennon has said far worse. Next tweet. We warned him that we would sue before the program. He not only ignored that warning, but did not even carry our denial in his nonsense program. It gets worse. Next tweet. By the time we finish with him, the real story of #Panodrama will be how Tommy Robinson is the purveyor of fake news, lies, and false moral outrage. Next tweet. I thought it would be important to clarify my earlier tweet that Caolan Robertson has retracted the allegation he made against Hope Not Hate. What I should have said, and interjection here, this is the important bit, guys. What I should have said is that he has retracted the allegation in 13 separate messages and a phone call. Next tweet. Several of these retractions occurred before he spoke to Lennon on the phone, the recording of which was included in his idiotic and conspiratorial documentary. Next tweet. Lennon was told by Caolan at Hope Not Hate and the BBC that the allegation was not true, yet he still ran the allegation. Bad, bad move. Now, I think you can see what has happened here, but I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions, because I don't need to patronize you guys. I don't need to spell it all out. Some of you have been here with me from the beginning, but you can see what's happened here. Nick Lowell's Twitter is saying that Tommy ran with allegations after Caolan Robertson withdrew them. Now, what Nick Lowell's is saying is that Tommy knowingly published an allegation that's already withdrawn, and then that he's going to sue him for it. And this is the kicker here. This is the real kicker. He claims that he has 13 pieces of evidence, including phone conversations, texts, and written evidence, that Caolan Robertson withdrew the allegations. Well, I don't know. This kind of makes me feel a little uncomfortable, because if Caolan Robertson isn't working with Hope Not Hate, how the hell do they have 13 pieces of evidence of this retraction? And let's just go into a crazy conspiratorial mode here. But wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be really funny if they wanted to stitch somebody up who was hot-headed? And this is just an opinion, an allegation. This is just something that's alleged. It's not a fact, but it's a theory. Wouldn't it be funny if Caolan Robertson was working with Hope Not Hate? And when I say funny, I mean disastrous and terrible. And Caolan Robertson had made some crazy allegations, knowing people were going to run with them. And then just before a documentary was to be aired with those allegations, retracted them all, knowing that Tommy Robinson was a bit of a hothead and that he had to show something at his big event. And he didn't have time to recut his documentary. He didn't have time to resplice it all and take the bits out and rework it. He's been working on that for ages. So he just pushes the button. He shows it anyway. And at that point, they've got him. Now, I remember at the beginning of this, you might be thinking this is all a bit convoluted. But I remember at the beginning of this, I read you a quote. A former Hope Not Hate communications advisor has admitted the group trying to take Nigel Farage to court uses dirty, underhand, low-down, unscrupulous tactics in their efforts to crush political opponents. Oh dear. And I think you can see where we've been going with this. So let me wrap up, but we've got some late breaking news here because it's not the end of this debacle. So, I've mentioned Lauren a lot, Lauren Southern, and I mentioned her because of the people that trusted her and because of the people that Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn-John gained access to because of their association with her. Now, somebody today who asked to remain nameless sent me a document with a number of allegations in, and this document reads as follows. These are the people that Caolan Robertson, George Llewellyn-John have had access to: Tommy Robinson, Stephen Molyneux, Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, Milo Yiannopoulos, Tara McCarthy, Brittany Pettibone, Martin Sellner, somebody from Generation Identity, Tom Dupree from Generation Identity, who, interjection, was on the Tommy Robinson documentary, Panodrama, and he said he lost his job. He claimed he lost his job because of Hope Not Hate. And who gave all that information to Hope Not Hate on him? You know, she said the further people, whoever was at Defend Europa in the Alps, Laura Lume, Ezra Levant, Anne-Marie Waters, Nigel Farage's aide, George Cottrell, Jared Batten, Janice Atkinson, Stephen Crowder, Douglas Murray, Gavin McInnes, Stephen Wolfe, MEP, Peter Sweden, Sargon of Akkad, and Raheem Kassam. They are people that, thanks to Lauren Southern, George Llewellyn-John and Caolan Robertson have had access to. And there are also further allegations in this document sent to me. And one of the allegations is that the big Milo leak came from Caolan Robertson, and that Caolan Robertson has in fact been the person who brought Milo down. Now, that's an allegation. I can't verify it, so I don't know if it's true, but that is something that's been alleged. I tried to contact Milo via Instagram. He didn't reply to my message. Don't know if he's seen it. Don't think he did. Don't think he'd reply anyway even if he did. But I tried to help him out because, again, I wanted to get to the bottom of this. But here is, here's this. Now, this person has also given me a massive, massive timeline of events, and I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to read this from the document. I mean, these are allegations, and it says, to me, this is from the document, and I quote, to me, the most important thing here is that looking back, I don't know what I can link back to Caolan and George. I'm not sure how responsible they are for everything that's on the Hope Not Hate website, but I can tell you a couple of things which I think they may be responsible for, having heard it from their own mouths. This is somebody who knows them. Tommy being banned from PayPal, US visa blocked. Tommy's location being known by Hope Not Hate, leading for him to be followed, potentially putting a tracker on Tommy's car, sending Milo emails to Hope Not Hate. This is confirmed, this person claims, but as I said, I'm treating these as allegations, so take them with as much or as little as you want. The Rebel cruise being cancelled, things that they're not sure about, but they're suspicious of. So these are things that they think they're suspicious that Caolan and Robertson, George Llewellyn-John might have played a part in, but they can't be. These definitely can't be confirmed. Defend Europa mission being interfered with, Lauren Southern being banned from the UK, Martin and Brittany Pettibone denied entry into the UK, stuff relating to Generation Identity, James Goddard, issues in Poland, Anne-Marie Waters being exposed, and Britain First being exposed. Now, I have pictures that this person sent me. I have 2 large files of pictures of Caolan Robertson meeting with all the aforementioned people. So we know he met them. So that is a document that came to me late in the day about this. I've not had time to integrate it all, but I think we're starting to put together quite serious stuff here. So I'm going to conclude now, and before we move on to the question and answers, I'll go through the super chats and see if there is any questions, and I'll try to answer them. I believe Caolan Robertson, my opinion is that Caolan Robertson is a rat. I believe that he has played both sides for financial gain and seen how far he can get. I believe he's a compromised individual. I will never work for him again, and anyone that does should be considered compromised. I believe Lauren Southern is an opportunist. I don't believe she works for Hope Not Hate. I don't believe she's a spy, but I have a low opinion of her. I think she did this for money. I think you look at her past, she was into cosplay, she did things that were exploitative of men in some degree because it was money. She came to us, she got lots of money. You look at the way she raised that money, and I think all of that, casts a lot of doubt on her personality, but I think this casts a lot more doubt on her. And what casts slightly more doubt on her, and this is very important. She recently made a speech to the EU, which is up on her YouTube. And in that speech to the EU, she seems to have this massive change of attitude towards migrants. I mean, it sort of shocked me that she got invited to speak in the EU anyway. You know, she's meant to be this person who's banned from even entering the UK. She's such a threat to security, yet she's invited to the EU, and she makes this speech. And in this speech, she gives this rather cringeworthy appraisal of some African migrants. She said she loved this guy's smile, and he was talking about his dreams of playing football for Chelsea, and she couldn't help but be charmed by him. And she spends a large degree of this speech to the European Parliament doing this almost sort of backtracking. She's not talking about the troubles that we as European people face because of mass migration, because of replacement migration, but she's talking about how it's affecting these migrants, and she's coming at it from this tact. And I noticed that a few people in the comments were saying that, and it's almost like she's dialing things back a little bit. And I find all of this around the same time being very, very worrying. But ultimately, I think she has put the future of her documentary, Borderless, on this pedestal, and she's treated as more important than she has the safety of others. We don't know whether she's changing direction. That's just something that I've picked up from her recent stuff. We don't know the extent of Caolan, Robertson and George Llewellyn John's ratting. We don't know what they've said. We know they've met these people regularly. We've met them in person. They're on first name terms with them, but we don't know the true extent of any of it. All I can say now to wrap up before I do the Q&A is it's a sorry situation. A sorry situation that could well be something that leads to Tommy Robinson being sued. It could well see him paying large damages. The man owns a house, he's got a family, he's got a kids. I don't want to see anyone who's nominally on our side losing their house or putting their family at risk. You know, it could lead to dozens of other people being exposed, and we've just seen a mass deplatforming of people like Tommy. We've seen a deplatforming of Raheem Kassam apparently as well off Facebook. I don't know if that's confirmed, somebody told me that. And many more people could be in real jeopardy. And why? Because somebody wanted to make a documentary and other people wanted to have nights out, you know, and that's the sad thing. This is all real greed. So I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. And if you've got any questions, you know, obviously I haven't been monitoring the chat, but we have got super chats. So I'm going to see if I can bring them all up, which I am doing now. There's quite a few, so let me read them out. Roy Danton gave $1.99. He said, thank you so much for doing this. Well, thank you for being here, Roy. You've been a long-term supporter. Das Pooch said, keep fighting the good fight, $5 US. Thank you very much. Elaine Sabatino gave $2 US. Thank you very much. Seek and Destroy 99 said, everything going on at Heel-Turn and now this report on Hope Not Hate. I'm losing faith at the moment. Who can we trust? It seems like our movement is crumbling. $5 US. I'm sorry you feel that way, mate, but it's not. It's not, and that's why I'm here tonight. Look, I'm not the be-all and end-all of this movement. I'm just one guy, right? But I'm the one guy making this documentary, presenting this documentary evidence and talking about this because I care, because I want to root this out. And I've seen all this happen before. I've given you a historical perspective, but we can bounce back from these things. We just have to have a policy of not dealing with these people, not dealing with them, not talking to them. And if you know somebody's dealing with them, talk to them. Tell us, you know, we need to expose, you know, we need to expose these people, and we need to be free of people who are bringing us down. This isn't the end of us. You know, we are going to keep fighting on. Nipex Man gave $5 US. The mass deplatforming with Heel-Turn and now this. Anti-white censorship is nearing a crescendo. It will get worse. Don't lose hope. Exactly. Mangoy Love said, not smart to associate with flaming homosexuals, $2 New Zealand. Thank you. Roy Danton, another $4.99. Thank you very much. I vaguely remember some incident with Caolan and Ezra Levant involving some donations, but can't quite remember. Do you know anything about this? I covered that. Thank you very much. Romulus, $5 US. Hope Not Hate are white traitors. Sean V, love your work, Mark. Thank you for continuing to spread the truth. $5 Canadian. David S, Mark, you're a brave man for doing this. Cheers, bro. Well, thank you, and thank you for the $2. And if I'm deplatformed in the morning, we all know why. But I wanted to do this, and if this is my sort of Alamo, so be it. Romulus, homosexuals are notoriously targeted by foreign intel services as they're easy to target. Google it. It was the policy by KGB. They are the least loyal. $5. Thank you, Romulus. Meditating Jesus. Communism will win. Not on my watch, my friend. $1.99. Das Pooch, $5. Anyone weak and unstable enough to be tricked into partying too hard and talking, i.e. blackmail story is legit, is a massive radioactive liability. $5. Thank you. Roy Danton, another $4.99. Thank you again. Why didn't Generation Identity expose this? And is Generation Identity Germany, Austria involved in this? Did Martin Selman know anything about this? I don't know. I want to say this for a fact. Tonight I've dealt with facts. I've also given some of my opinions, a little bit of what I think may happen from historical historical kind of narrative from what I've learned from the past. My Red Bull's wearing off a bit now, as you can tell. But I can't say anything bad about Martin Selman on this, because I don't think he was involved. I don't think he know. And I think people like Tom Dupree from Generation Identity have felt the full brunt of this, and he may well be a victim of this. We don't know who ratted him out, but somebody did. He lost his job. The guy lost his job because of this kind of loose lips sink ships. The people talking about them lost this poor kid his job, and I'm sure Tom Dupree isn't my biggest fan, because, I'm just sure he's not. He's written to me in the past, and, I said I didn't think he was the best man for the job because he got his knickers in a twist over it all and he sat down, but he didn't deserve to lose his job. He's a young kid. He didn't deserve this, and I'm very sad they did, but I don't think Martin Selman knew, and I think a lot of the young GI guys are a little bit naive too. Remember, I've been doing this since, for nearly 20 years. Some of these guys have been in less than 20 months. We can't hold naive people like Tom Dupree accountable. He's a victim in this. I believe he's, I believe that he's been, ratted out. Smitty 2000 gave $4 and 99 cents. Thank you very much. Selective Misanthrope gives Mark, keep up the sterling work, Mr. Misanthrope. Thank you very much. $1.99. Barisha said, stay vigilant, do well. $10. Thank you very much. MYM said, great show, love you, Mark. £5. Thank you very much. Jan said, when will the alt-right stop trusting homosexuals? Rhetorical question. $10. Look, there's people like Greg Johnson. I didn't know he was a homosexual. I didn't know he was a homosexual. I love working with him. He's a great guy. I really like him. I'm looking forward to speaking with him later this month. He's a great guy, and he doesn't put it about. I think there's a big difference here between men who are homosexual and these very blatant, flagrant, loud and proud homosexuals who are part of the party scene. And I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush, because, I think Greg Johnson's done sterling work. On the other hand, I think Caolan Robertson and George Llewellyn John have done the very opposite of sterling work. Raw said he gave €2 and 29 cents in Europe. I think it is. You could invite Lauren Southern as a guest. She gave me a rebuttal, but she didn't reply to my message. Caveman gave £1. Thank you very much. And I think there's some more super chats. I'm just refreshing. Dare Share Uska said, well said, Mark. Keep up the good work. €2. Sabon Voyage gave £5 Canadian. Thank you very much. My Twitter was purged. Please battle me in Smash, Mark. I never saw your reply, but here's my code. I'm not going to read your code out. Also, love your work, mate. Look, I said to people I would battle them at Smash Brothers, but I got to admit I am good at the single player, but I get very frustrated with the multiplayer. But I will add your code. So thank you very much for the kind donation. It's very good of you. Regnar gave 50 DKK. This is hot stuff. Your war stories from the front applied to current events. When humans are tested, we fail, sadly. Indeed, we do. But remember this, Regnar. Don't be too depressive. When humans are tested, it's kind of one of those like natural selection things. Sometimes people meet the challenge presented to them. Sometimes they don't, and that's what makes a man. And some of us are men, some of us aren't. Roy Danton, he gave $19.99. Thank you very much. I think the most important lesson we can learn out of this is to draw inspiration out of the very rational and professional way you handle this issue. You did an amazing job. Thank you very much. Just refresh again. And the final super chat from Bryneth Malden, he said 50, but he gave $1.99. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to close it up here, guys, with the following. I think a lot of people thought this was going to be some drama stream, some kind of like, sort of blood sports light drama stream where I was going to be tearing into people and making accusations. I hope everyone tonight can see that that wasn't the case. I've tried to handle this in the most mature way. Another super chat, Winston the Belligerent, $2.14. Thanks, Mark, for making our cause a priority. And that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to handle this in a way, as I said, I want to be clear. I don't think Lauren Southern works for Hope Not Hate. I'm not saying she's a spy. I'm saying she's, an opportunist. You can review everything, review all the evidence for yourself, draw your own conclusions. But I feel we've dealt with this tonight in a respectful, decent way. I hope you've all enjoyed that, and I hope you've all been a bit enlightened by this. And by coming out and talking about things in the open, if people had done that originally, if Lauren had just taken to YouTube and done this stream and said, look, these guys are compromised, and I'm sorry, but your documentary is being held up by them and I can't finish it, I'd have respected her a lot more. And I'd even respected her if she said, look, Mark, these guys are compromised, but they've got all my work. So I'm telling everyone they're compromised not to work with them. And I'm trying to get my work off them. And hopefully they're going to finish the work, but I'm telling everyone the truth about them. But she didn't. And that's why I'm so upset about it, because she didn't tell everyone the truth. She didn't let her friends know. She didn't, the way Tommy was shocked when he heard it was just, Tommy's meant to be her friend. He had her at the Day of Freedom, and she betrayed that. Another super chat, Niall Oldhouse, £4.99. Mark, how much do you think the likes of Lauren Southern, Faith Gorey, Tommy Robertson, and other art writers make off their shilling? I don't know. I think things are fickle. It's people have good times and bad times, ups and downs. Bryneth Malden gave $9.99. Thank you very much. Makuva gave $1.99. Mark, thanks for all you do. LMD gave €5.49. Hi, Mark. Greetings from a British patriot living in Finland. Love your UK TV Christmas adverts. They're going to be there every year, my friend. Keep up the great work. Charles Garrity gave $5. Thank you for all that you do, Mark. What is some advice for self-improvement? Well, maybe that's for another show. I'm just going to try and wrap this up, really. Self-improvement. Focus on yourself, make yourself proud of who you are. Go to the gym, run, educate yourself. When you love yourself, you become a better person, because if you love yourself, others can love you. If you hate yourself, everyone will hate you. That's the key to it. Nuke Cloudstalker gave 100 DKK. Nice stream. You handled this quite well, in my honest opinion. Broader perspective is more important than momentary drama and blood sports. Cheers. Thank you very much for that very, very generous donation. And that's what I'm trying to say here. If Lauren had done this, if Lauren had even come out and said to all of our close allies, people like Alex Jones, Tommy Robinson, Brittany, all of these people, look, these guys, don't talk to them. Look, on the low, do not talk to them. Everyone ignore these guys. I just got to finish my documentary and get it out there, but be safe. I'd be a lot more respectful. But the Tommy Robinson thing shows she didn't. And the fact that these guys have been apparently working with Alex Jones, Gavin McInnes, and a load of other people, we could see the leaks from all this, the fallout from this, lasting for months, maybe even longer, maybe even years. The wealth of material that could be recorded, logged against a wealth of people. It's quite shocking. But look, I hope you've all enjoyed this. I hope you think, and as I said, I'm not saying, that Caolan and Helen Robertson, George Llewellyn John, they're finished. Lauren Southern, she's a lot bigger than me. It's not my choice whether she stays or whether she goes, but I think at the very least, the girl needs to take a step back and a long, hard look at herself and what her priorities in life. There's this tale about these wolves, and there's a young wolf and an old wolf, and the young wolf betrays the pack for temporary benefit. He betrays the pack for temporary benefit, and he ends up facing off with the old wolf. And the old wolf says to him, hunger comes and goes, but dignity and pride, once you've lost those, they never come back. And that's something that, maybe she should think about. She's sold out a lot for, this documentary. And is it worth it? Let's see. Most likely not. One documentary is not going to change the world, but undermining the entire movement, handing this wealth of information to people who work to expose and chronicle everything we do and work with the media to produce documentaries on us could do us immense harm. But anyway, thank you very much for being here. I hope you think I've covered this in a respectful manner. Please feel free to like and share it. And I will see you on Wednesday for another episode of This Week on the Alt-Right. That is, if they haven't deplatformed me for exposing all this. Have a great night and a lovely weekend. Thanks, guys.